And good afternoon, and welcome to Breakthrough Walls, the afternoon edition. So I have actually a very, very special guest on, somebody I recently met and became friends with. And after talking to her for about a 15-minute conversation on the phone, I was like, you know what? You need to be on my show. This woman is amazing. Her name is Anna Liotta, and I know I got it right. Anna, welcome to the show.
Thank
I
you.
gotta say,
got it perfect. That was like,
I did. Hallelujah. So Anna, you're the president of
very few.
What's that?
You're one of very few.
Yeah. Look, we had a breakthrough already on Breakthrough Walls.
I love it. I love it.
So Anna, you're the president of the National Speakers Association. You're a speaker yourself, a professional speaker. You're an author. You're from what I can tell, you're just a badass.
Well, I like it. That's my official next title, badass.
Put that on your business card.
That's right, exactly. Forget all of these modality titles. Let's just say statement, badass.
That's right. So Anna, you and I talked the other day for quite a while. And I was really, really impressed. But I created this show a couple years ago to help people get unstuck in life. And as you and I were discussing, there's a lot of people that are stuck right now.
Yes.
And you're fielding a lot of those calls. I am. We're getting a lot of, I see it a lot online, just people are concerned, I guess would be the word. So let's kind of start out a little bit with giving the audience a little bit of your background, like where you're from, where you were born and raised. Start there.
All right. Well, I was born and raised in Eastern Washington State. I grew up in a teeny tiny town, in the country next to a teeny tiny town called Colfax, Washington. So the thing that makes it even more interesting is that I am the youngest girl of 19 children.
Oh my.
Yes.
So you guys did not have a TV.
We didn't for the longest time. For the longest time, we did not have a TV. But there was another little ingredient in it, which was my parents were very Catholic. And there is a little bit of a romantic story that goes to it. My mom married her high school sweetheart when she was 16. They grew up in Montana in a little logging community. And by the time she was 28 years old, she'd had the first 10 kids. And
What?
Can you imagine being 28 and expecting your 10th child?
No, I can't.
Yeah. It was a poo, 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 poo. Her husband had also been from a large family, the oldest of 12 and very, very Catholic. But the story thickens from there, because when my mom was 28 and her husband at the time was 30, they didn't know it, but he had a congenital heart issue. And he passed away that year from a heart attack. So she was widowed at 28 with 10 kids. So talk about walls, right?
God.
And so she's now, at the time they'd gotten married when she was 16. So she had like a sophomore in high school education. And she basically, her brother-in-laws were living in Spokane, Washington, and said to her, Jody, why don't you come over here and we'll share our resources, which was very GI generational coding of them to say, we'll share what we have. At that time, one of them had 6 kids, one of them had 8 kids. And so she did. She packed up her wood panel station wagon of the day, all 10 kids in there. Of course, this was pre-seat belts, right? And drove over the mountain passes and settled in Spokane, Washington, and got the kids into the local cathedral parish school, and all the nuns and priests kind of helped watch over this nice young widow with all the kids. And so for the next year, there she was, scraping to survive, helping, getting some family help, but, working with those kids. And then one day she gets a phone call from the priests in her church. And they said, Jody, we have this nice bachelor we'd like you to meet. Now she's thinking, no, I'm not dating. I'm, newly married, or no, sorry, newly widowed, I should say. But what she didn't know is that a couple weeks earlier, the priest from her parish had driven 60 miles south to play golf with the priests from Pullman, Washington, where the Washington State University is. And afterwards, they were sitting around and they were solving problems. They were, having a little wine, have a little bite to eat. And the priest from her parish said to the priest from that parish, okay, we've got a doozy of a problem. We've got a really juicy one. And they said, okay, what is it? Like, we solve these all the time, right? They said, well, we've got this widow in our church and we need to find her a husband.
Oh my God.
And the priests were like, well, what's wrong with her? And they said, oh, nothing's wrong with her. She's fine. But she's got 10 kids. And who in their right mind, right, is going to marry a widow with 10 kids, right?
My God.
Nobody's going to do this. But they were surprised when the other priest got this big smile on their face and they said, we've got the perfect bachelor. Our local PGA golf pro is 44 years old, and he has said for years that he's never going to get married. He's a bachelor forever at 44, unless he can meet a nice young widow with at least 8 kids.
No way.
He said, let's cheer him up.
No way.
And they honestly did. They're like, let's set him up. Let's call his bluff. That's really what they were doing. They thought we're calling his bluff. He said for years that he's a confirmed bachelor, unless
it was a joke.
Right? There's exactly. But you and I know, right? Like, be careful what you say, because your words create a world, right? Yeah. And so for years he's saying this, and everyone else is jealous of him because he's single, 44. Has the life. He's a golf pro. He's got his summers, free because he works at a university. Like, they're thinking he's it, right?
Oh my God.
And so they call his bluff and they write him a letter. And this is where you need to know your audience, right? So they write him a letter and he opens it up and it says, Dear Mr. Liotta, we have a nice young widow in our church we think you might like to meet. Now, here's the catch. She's got 10 kids, and we know that 10 is a high score in golf. Know your audience, right? But her last name is Bird. So we think the fact that all of her kids are little birdies, which is a good score, right? 1 under par, will help make up for that. Right? This is so intricate that they would do this. And he says, of course I thought this was a joke, right?
Oh my God.
His best friend who's a doctor and another friend who's a priest. And he's like, ha guys, funny punk. Like, today we'd think it was, at the time we probably would have thought it was you're on candid camera kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Punked me. And they're like, we have no idea what you're talking about. Call the person that wrote the letter. So he brings him up and he's like, hi, this is Al Liotta. I got the letter about the widow. And, he says, are you serious? And the priest said, yeah. Are you interested?
Oh my God.
So he said, okay. And the priest said, great, pick her up Friday, 7:00. And then they called my mother. And this is the first she's heard of it. And she, of course, said, no, I'm not, I'm not dating. Thank you. But no. But Friday at 7:00, pulls my father in a Cadillac convertible. This is a 1962, big blue fins, white leather seats, the whole 9 yards. And they end up going out on their first date. And he asked her to marry him that night.
Are you serious?
He said the moment she opened the door, that was it. And she thought he was crazy or a godsend. It took him 3 months to convince her. But she finally said yes. And a couple of years later, along came a little girl. A couple of years after that, adorable little girl. And then when I was 8 years old, she found out she was expecting my youngest brother. And so that takes us up to 13 kids now. And about a year after my brother was born, she found out she had pancreatic cancer. So we were devastated because this is 1979 and pancreatic cancer today is still a major wall to hit.
It is amazing.
And at that time, the doctor said, you know, Jody, this is not good. But she called my dad to her bedside and she said to him, listen, I don't expect you to live the rest of your life alone. I know what it's like to lose your life partner. And there is a perfectly wonderful widow right down the road from us, which was her best friend in the whole world, who had 6 kids. She'd been widowed. And about a year after my mom passed away, my dad and that lovely widow began to visit at a church social and fell in love. And they celebrated 39 years of marriage.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
I'm serious.
I have never heard a story like this. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, they're pretty amazing.
So your mother had 13?
13 children.
That's a baker's dozen.
That's a big, in fact, we got a letter from the Pope when she had the 13th child, and it was like, you know, 2 thumbs up Jody. It had gold embossed florets and, you know, like all the calligraphy and all that. It was literally on the wall in when you go up the stairs and then you turn left, boom, there was the Pope. He was like, just staring you down. You felt guilty if you ever did anything wrong.
Oh my.
The Pope was hanging out.
Oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. Wow, what a story. So that she had, so the woman that your father ended up marrying she had 6. Okay.
She had 6 of her own children, and I always call her my bonus mom because she was a gift to our family. She was gracious to us, she was kind to us, and she had been my mother's best friend. So we already liked her. Right?
Wow.
And she was an amazing cook. Let's be clear. My poor father nearly starved to death in between because we would feed him so many pizzas and hot dogs and fish sticks. Like that was, I am a great baker, but I am not a good cook.
I am really good at heating up those frozen fish sticks. Like, right?
But that is not what you want for a year of food. We didn't know it till many years later, but like for the entire year, he carried Tums in his pocket, like at all times, because he was always, and so he would like eat before he came home, and then he would eat whatever horrible thing us kids prepared for him. It was,
So how many, so 19 children.
I know. Oh,
like that's, so between the White House wouldn't be big enough to live in.
No, because now think about it. So my brothers and sisters between them have 56 children, and their kids already have 68 kids. So I am an auntie and a great auntie over 100 times.
Oh my God.
This is modern day. This is like today.
Like, do you have to take out a second mortgage to go Christmas shopping? Like,
exactly. You know, for a lot of years I did. And then once we got to the greats, the grandkids and nieces and nephews, and then the great nieces and nephews, we finally had to stop and say, listen, for years we did the secret Santa, like we'd swap people up and we'd, do the secret. And then finally people would forget each other and that kind of thing. So we just said, okay, here's the rule. If I am eyeball to eyeball with you on Christmas Day, like if I see the whites of your eyes, we exchange presents. But if we are remote, we do not exchange presents. It's just too expensive.
I mean, seriously, and do you know all their names? Can you pick them all out? Like, Oh,
okay. So I absolutely know all my brothers and sisters, all their spouses, and all their children's names. It's the greats that get a little confusing because they name them some of the most interesting things.
Like,
and they happen so fast, we're at the exponential rate now.
Oh my gosh, that is unbelievable. Like somebody watching said, I have never heard anything of like that ever. And what kind of a job would you have to like? How do you have?
Well, okay, so that's a good comment. That's a good question. My mother was a master gardener, a master seamstress,
Oh.
and she was a master carpenter. I mean, talk about a Renaissance woman. My bonus mom, she was a good cook and a good baker and a good seamstress and an extraordinary, at creating a homey, warm place, as far as the home environment. So basically, they raised all our food. I mean, I can milk a cow. I can slop the hogs. I can eat, well, probably couldn't throw a bale now, but I mean, I was like, boom, right? Like, boom. So, no, I am the last of the, of my Gen X generation that grew up real agrarian, right? And I thought everyone like knew how to grow a garden and do all of these things because we literally were in it. And you're so right. These women are warriors. They are.
Mean, seriously.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, both GI gens, right? Well, my bonus mom would be a GI gen. My mom would be a traditionalist. And like they took no guff and they took nothing for granted. Like everything was used to the end of it. In fact, when I talk about generations in my speech, I talk about my bonus mom and I being a few years ago, and she was in her 90s, being ready for a family dinner. And we were making a lasagna together and covered it in tinfoil to take it off to the family dinner. And at the end of the night, I'm wiping down the now empty lasagna plate. And I look over at my sweet bonus mom. And what do you think she was doing with the tinfoil?
Keep it.
She was saving it, right? Yeah. She was smoothing it out. She was saving it. She was operating what I call her generational code. Because when we want to understand different generations, we have to look at their formative experiences between the ages of 8 to 18. Because what we know from knowledge studies is that our brains start to make logic about age 7. Yeah. And so the major world events and the leaders and the icons that we're watching in those formative years between 8 to 18 shape our reality, or what I would call our code. It kind of creates an algorithm in the back of our mind that we reference for the rest of our life, even though we don't know it. So there's my bonus mom who grew up during the Great Depression, World War II. And to this day, she would still be saving a paper towel and reusing it, even though it wasn't COVID. Like right now, all of a sudden, we have this whole new appreciation for all of our generations that went through that. We're going on another generational formative event. But for her, like she couldn't not do it. She could not see the tinfoil. It would have actually stressed her out. Yeah. For those formative things that shaped her algorithm.
Wow. Wow. See here, Christy Jones said her grandmother had a drawer full of used tinfoil.
Exactly. And how?
Uh-oh. Are you there? It locked up on us.
Oh, I'm still here.
Okay. I think your internet took a hiccup on it there. So Pam Aubrey's talking. I mean, and I'm sure you went, I can't even imagine. So, okay, let me ask you this. So how many children lived in the house at one time?
Okay, there was a brief year where 11 of us were living in the household at the same time.
Oh my gosh. How many bedrooms?
We had 5 bedrooms.
Wow.
But we had bunk beds that stacked us up. And the thing was to get to sleep on the top bunk. That's what you wanted, is to be on the top bunk, because the springs on the bed were worn out from years and years of use. So they kind of sagged. And so if you were on the bottom bunk, you like had somebody's bum right there in your face. But I saw Pamela, I love what you said there, because when I was a little kid, one of my sisters went off to college, and when she came home, they put this plaque up in our one toilet bathroom, because we didn't have a shower, just a toilet and a bathtub. And there was a sign, and it said, fresh water, 25 cents, fresh bath water, 25 cents, used bath water, 5 cents. And people would see that and laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. And I didn't understand the joke for years, that people didn't think about reusing the bathwater, right? Like that you don't use somebody else's grody scody bathwater. But to me, you didn't waste water. So that water was just, it's true. Like you put 4 kids in the bath, and you've all been out on the farm all day. And so you're really dirty and you just don't waste water. Wow. Once a week. Exactly. That's right. And never be late for church, right, Jeff? I mean, oh my gosh, if we were late for church, my dad would march us up to the front pew and make sure everybody saw you coming in late, like the super embarrassment. And then when it came time to go to the basketball game that we all wanted to go to, he would make sure that we were as many minutes late after the tip-off as we were minutes late to church.
Oh my.
And that way, the next time church came up, all the older kids would make sure to manage the younger kids to get in the car so we weren't late for church.
And you know what's interesting about that is today they would call children's services on you.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
I mean, but what level though of responsibility did that give you? What did it teach you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it taught you to think about others first and to make sure that you were very conscious that you lived in community with others and that how you behaved made an impact on everyone around you.
Yes.
And yes, strategic embarrassment, Jill. That's
my wife.
Yeah.
That's my wife. Yeah.
Well, and so that's a generational code right there. I remember very clearly my father saying, what happens in this house stays in this house, right? Like you didn't want outside, people to know business outside the house, like no social media, embarrassing people, right? But yeah, he would be a strategic embarrassment for sure. If it was something that, if you did not get to sit in the back pew, you walked all the way to the front.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That would ensure that it probably didn't happen very often, I would imagine.
It did not. We were not late to church often. No.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So you ended up, and you were in this whole, okay. So how old were you when you ended up in Eastern Washington?
Well, I grew up in Eastern Washington until I went to college. And then I didn't go that far away. I went down to Portland, Oregon to go to undergrad at the University of Portland down there.
Okay. Okay. And I know you've got like 6 master's degrees or something.
Well, I have 1 master's degree, but I think we might have talked about when I was in college, since I was paying for it myself, I got about 5 minors and a couple of majors.
Wow. That's incredible. So what's your degree in?
So my undergraduate degrees were in communications management, theater, music, journalism, and television production. Okay. And then my master's degree was in interpersonal communications with a focus on intimacy and marriage, but looking at that psychology, sociology intersection of communication.
Wow. That makes me one of the smartest people that I know then. So where after college, my gosh, I can't like my brain is running a million. I'm still thinking about the 19 kids. I can't even imagine what a family reunion's like.
Well, we call them weddings.
Yeah. I mean, like, hey, I'm going to make a bowl of macaroni salad for the, it would have to be a trough of macaroni salad.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. We get very good at this. Everybody has the thing that they're good at. So my sister Joanne is great at making homemade rolls. And my sister Karen is amazing at pies. And my sister Teresa brings a ham. So everybody's got a thing that you just bring that one thing and ask quantity. And so when, there's that kind of gathering, everybody's like, all right, you're going to bring that, and everybody just, and somehow it works out. Everybody. Now I am great at bringing wine. Let's be clear.
Are you stomping the grapes yourself? Or...
What's that?
I said, are you stomping these grapes yourself, or are you buying the wine?
That's a good point. I probably should, but no. I don't.
Wow. So wow, that is just amazing. So after college, because I know you became a public speaker and you do a lot of corporate stuff, and but where did you go after college? I'm sure you didn't take to the stage, I would imagine. Maybe you did.
Well, so I did a lot of stage work while in college. I was in a lot of theatrical productions and whatnot, and as well as a lot of TV work while I was in college too, because at that time we had like a full professional studio. But
Yeah.
my first job out of college, now this is an interesting thing, because you would think that I would receive some mentorship, or I would have, I was the valedictorian, I was the outstanding, senior woman, outstanding woman in communication. But what I didn't get in college was mentorship. So I took the first job out of college that was at the time like $10,000 for the year. And, I could have gone to a lot of, like, if I'd known how to get into a better internship or a better track, if I'd had any mentorship or people being like, hey, this is high potential, we should really look out for her.
Yeah.
But instead I ended up at a university working in residential life. I ran a few of the dormitories for the university, and I did a bunch of programming and helping students with their sense of self and how did they develop their identity. And so it kind of is always one of those things that leads you along the path.
Yeah.
But I worked for university for a year, and then I went on to work in fundraising. I'd always been good. I'd worked, oh my goodness, I probably worked 31 different jobs during college to cobble together the resources to go to school. I'd actually started in electrical engineering and the Air Force ROTC program, because I didn't have to pay for college, and there was this engineering scholarship available. So I'm like, all right, maybe I'll be an engineer.
Oh my gosh.
And that was a horrible, terrible thing. It is when I learned that you might be smart, but there are certain people whose brains work that way. Yeah. And there are certain people whose brains don't. Yeah. And so like I struggled so hard to eke out A's in classes that I was completely underwater. Like I hadn't had any pre-calculus. I hadn't had any computer programming. And here I am in electrical engineering. Thank goodness that the boys that had a lot of that prep, because there was only like 2 girls in the whole, program at that time. And the boys had no idea how to do the fine arts classes. So I would tutor them in fine arts and communication, and they would tutor me in electrical engineering. And somehow I survived that first year. And then the university pulled out the Air Force detachment, and they said, hey, if you stick around, we'll give you some grant money. And I was like, done.
Oh my God.
And done. But it would become valuable later on when I would do consulting or keynoting for engineering companies, because I'm like, I know how your mind works.
Yeah, right. Wow.
To it, but I get it.
Wow. That's, yeah. I remember thinking about engineering. And I was always really good at math, but there was, I don't think I have the personality for it.
I remember one of the early tests, and maybe you would have done better on this than me, but they would give you a picture of something that when folded up was a particular shape. And you were looking at the flat version of it where you'd see the edges, and they wanted to know, like, what would the shape be when you folded it? And I would just cry. I was like, I don't know what the shape of that would be.
It's going to be a crushed ball. Because I'm going to get pissed off and crush it into a little ball. That's what it's going to be.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It'll be a soggy mess. To this day, origami just ticks me off.
Oh my God.
I have PTSD from origami.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. So so what happened? I mean, yeah, let's get off origami for a minute.
So yeah, that's right. So I went on to work in fundraising for private schools, because I had done a bunch of smile and dial when I was, a kid working jobs at the university, where you'd call up the alum and you'd say, hi, I'm Anna Liotta and I'm calling about. And so I had done a ton of that and had been really good at the phones. And so I went into fundraising for a couple of years for a private girls school at Catholic, of course. But the thing that really got me to move to Seattle is I had seen over Easter, so really recent to today, I had seen this Black gospel choir that sang in a Catholic church. And I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to swing with that choir. So I found a job in Seattle so I could sing in a Black gospel choir. That's how I got here.
Hold it. You moved to Seattle so you could sing in a Black. Did you say Black
gospel? I did. I said Black gospel choir. It was called Shades of Praise. And so it had people of every shade. And it was just this cool little unique Catholic church where like everybody was super integrated and accepted, and it was run by a deacon that was a woman. And there were, you know, people of every persuasion on the church council. And I was like, these are my people. These are my people. I sang with that choir for 8 years.
Did you really? Fun fact, my wife sang in the Catholic, she's on here, she'll tell you, I don't know, a Catholic choir at some big Catholic church. So, wow, that's incredible. And I'm not Catholic.
Well, neither am I anymore. So,
okay.
I'm a very happy Nichiren Buddhist.
I love it.
My siblings are all still Catholic. They are still close with the Pope.
Yeah. So you so now you've divulged that you live in Seattle.
I do.
Which is an amazing place to live.
It's a gorgeous place. I mean, it is so sunny out today. I can't wait to get out for a walk this afternoon, which is kind of the only thing you can get out and do.
Yeah, but it's so beautiful there. It is just, and you know, we talked about this when it's beautiful in Seattle. I mean, there's not a more beautiful place in the world.
I've had so many people come here between the months of May and September and say, I want to live in Seattle. I'm like, no. So just one quick check. It's gray between the August to or October to, you know, April.
Yeah.
Handle gray, because that's the problem. People think it rains. It doesn't rain that much. It's gray.
It's misty.
I love it.
If it rains in Seattle, it's like this. It's a mist.
It's a mist. It's a mist.
It's hard to explain, but it literally is just a mist. I remember when I lived out there, I remember women would always complain about their hair. Like,
yeah, you make one of two choices. You resist it and complain, or you say, yeah, I did do my hair this morning. This is just what it looks like after the rain. When you kind of go, I did my hair. Sure.
And the traffic on the I-5 corridor is absolutely the worst I've ever seen.
It's pretty bad. I mean, you know, one of the wonderful things about Seattle is that we have so many incredible companies here.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have Microsoft, we have Boeing, we have, you know, just Amazon, right?
Yeah. And
that means massive amount of talent coming into Seattle. And we've got 5 bodies of water that surround us. So that means bridges, and lots of little bottlenecks to it. So the infrastructure is not quite up to the massive influx.
Yeah, I mean, there's just I think the biggest problem is there's nowhere else to build. not north and south. There's just like where else do they build?
That's right. Well, we did start putting in a light rail, but way too long. Seattle does not pass transportation very easily. So 20 years ago, we started talking about a light rail. And if we'd actually done it then, whoa, what would be possible now? But now we've got a north and south one that doesn't go far enough north, but it goes all the way to the airport. Now we're doing an east and west one that will make a huge difference. It goes all the way out to the Microsoft campus in Redmond. Yeah. But it's a wonderful place. It's just growing really fast.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing. So at what point and when did you move to Seattle? How old were you?
Okay, so I'll tell you either how old I was or what year I moved. But
there you go. You're like, but not both.
Which would you like to know?
What year did you move to Seattle? How about
there you go. That's a good question.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Hey, I'm not a professional speaker yet. I'm working on my ethics. So
I landed in Seattle in 1993. So I've been here a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost
Wow.
long enough to stay local.
You got there when you were like 2 years old then.
I
Wow.
was. I
That's
was.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just two
Yeah.
years old.
So
Good to
so
cover.
when did you get into the whole um professional speaking world? When did that all start happening?
I hung my shingle out when I was 26 years old.
Oh,
So
wow.
I've been doing, we won't say how many years, we'll just add the math, but I did it really early.
Yeah.
And at that time, nobody wanted to listen to a 24-year-old woman, Gen Xer,
Yeah.
talk about leadership, because I was more broadly in leadership and communications. I'd done my first work in generational studies. I'd written an honors thesis on it in my undergrad, and published that in 92. So I started that work really early, but people weren't interested in Gen Xers. They were like, shmesh, shmesh. There's amazing
Yeah.
amounts of baby boomers and we're awesome. And
Right.
Gen Xers, nah. And so
Right.
I did more broad leadership and communications, speaking and consulting, and then got more deeply into the research and generational stuff about 15 years ago. So before it was cool.
Wow. Wow. So and when we talk about stages, I think a lot of people, we look at Tony Robbins and we look at, and I've always looked at these speakers like I'm friends with some big speakers, and I always have thought of these, stages as being, oh, I'm going to go speak at a stadium, and there's going to be 50,000 people there like Tony gets, and or whoever, and but that's not really the case that I've found. I've been hired to do some corporate speaking, and little events where there's 40 or 50 people in the room, and so that's more of where a lot of people go, right, for the corporate speaking stuff.
So is a mixed. So I've spoken in front of 8 people and I've spoken in front of 8,000 and everything in between. And I would be considered a high content, high performance speaker. So when I'm delivering a keynote, it's not just the density of thought leadership or the intricacy of the thought leadership, but full, performance, being able to really integrate your body and tell the message in 2 layers with your performance as well as with your statistics and your content and weaving that all together. Yeah. Some people will go to either end of the spectrum. They're all thought leadership, but can be a little more, shall we say, dry in their delivery. Yeah. And then others will be completely on the motivational in the big performance side, but the thought leadership might not be as deep in the space. Yeah. And so depending on which mix you're doing, you pick your audience. And so I do a lot of work with corporate. I do a lot of work with Microsofts and Amazons and Bloomberg News, but I also work with the PGA and the NBA.
Wow.
So I work through a lot of different modalities. And sometimes the audience is a super small group of executives, and sometimes it's a really large community, major event. I like them both because I get very intrigued by cross-pollinating across industries. I think that's fascinating to be able to say, oh, this is so intriguing. I was working with the NBA on this issue around talent, and yet that issue around talent is very present in this law firm. And I find that to be intriguing to do those intersections between them. But some people are saying, no, I have my thing and I want to do my thing. And I want to do that 60 minutes and deliver it and then find a new audience, not find a new topic or a new dimension or that kind of thing. And that's an appropriate one too, because there are plenty of associations. That's the other thing is, there's thousands and thousands of associations in the US, not even talking about going outside the US. And people could do their one talk for multiple associations. Well, let's say before this epidemic that we're in right now, there were plenty of stages. It will be interesting to see how it evolves now with our new consciousness about being in tight space quarters with large numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to evolve into something. I don't know what though.
Yeah.
The jury's still out on it. I know a lot of speakers. You know a lot more, for sure.
That's true. That is one thing being the president of the National Speakers Association will do, is have you meet a lot of speakers.
You have met a lot of speakers, I'm sure. So, and I do think that there's a genuine concern. Is that the word? There's a genuine concern about, like, there's a lot of speakers that do corporate events or stage, whatever, but that's all they do is they go and give talks, and that's it.
Yep.
Right. And then they leave and they go home, or to the next event. What do you think what can those people do that I mean, we kind of talked about this the other day, but what are some things that you think people could be doing to prepare for the new normal, if that's even a thing?
Great question. The first thing to understand is you are not modality dependent. You might have identified yourself as a mode, as I am a keynoter,
right.
And that right now might seem limiting. So what you need to do is be able to take a step back and say, here is the IP that I deliver in this modality. How could that IP be pivoted to the times and delivered in different modalities? So it's really kind of starting to unlayer what you packaged up and start to look at where is that needed now, but in different platforms. And so people got used to this one thing that I'm doing over and over. Now it's about diversifying the portfolio of delivery and saying, okay, what is it that I could be doing with that delivery now that people need? But you cannot be unconscious that the zeitgeist and the mental space of the audience, no matter what modality, has shifted. So you have to be thinking about your thought leadership and how do people need to be hearing it now? So for instance, in my own space around generational understanding and generational codes, it needs to be, how are millennials responding to being quarantined? We already know that there is an increase of the epidemic of loneliness, and that millennials grew up being very collaborative and very much part of communities and teams. And now we've asked them to be quarantined. What is that doing that as a leader, I now need to think about with my team? How do I stay engaged with them? How do I help them move through this? Particularly when their baby boomer parents have always been their go-to. Their baby boomer parents have always been their BFFs. And right now, their baby boomer parents are stressed too. Yeah. So they've got less margin. Our millennial who relies on their BFF, coach, mentor, parent has less margin. And so as a leader, I need to be more facile in how I do that. So now I'm still talking about generational codes, but I'm pivoting the IP to the time and the situation my people are in.
Wow. That was powerful. So, and you said some words I'm going to have to Google later.
Oh, which ones?
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. You're so smart. So I think that, and we talked about this, I have a friend that's doing a big virtual summit, right? And he's reaching out to some bigger name speakers and saying, hey, would you come on and you can sell your course, your book, your whatever. And they're like, yes, but I'm still getting my full fee or a huge fee to come on and do a virtual summit. And it's like, I don't know if that's the right direction you should be going. You'll get blacklisted for that. I mean, because news travels fast. Like, hey, don't call that dude or don't call that gal. She wants $10,000 to show up to an online summit. And I think that, we kind of need to open up. And this is causing that, right? It's forcing us to open our minds and look at other possibilities.
Yes. And there are two pieces in what you just said that I want to underline.
Yeah.
One, helping right now is definitely the new selling. To be able to be generous and say, how can I help you win? In fact, I was on a live stream with Marshall Goldsmith yesterday, and he said, listen, I have come to a certain point in my life and career where, yes, I wrote off $1 million in speeches this year. So that was like gulp, right? Gulp that we've already had to write that off. He said that won't come back. But I'm really looking at, what do you need right now that I can help you with? Because I am a certain stage in my career where I have more to give. That kind of personality. He went like, so that later on you get in my funnel and down the line, you buy my product and blah, 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 blah. People need to be thinking right now about, how is something that I have that I could give context or I could give insight on, something that would be useful to you now. And if I do a great job, yes, reciprocity has been established. And later on, when you're needing something, there's a high probability you're going to think about me. And so that kind of reciprocity back and forth is really important right now. The other thing too is, when it comes back to the time to say what our price points are, everyone has to be very conscious. What happened to the people that you're giving that price point to? Now, there are businesses that are killing it all day long right now. They are making money hand over fist. And it might be that they really do have that price point. So be really conscious of what's that industry or what's that organization dealing with, and maybe they can sustain it. But don't be tone deaf when you give your price point, because you will find out that people talk and they say, has this person not been listening? That right now, that's one of the worst things that you can do, because when people are in whatever stage of trauma they're in, and most of us are in some stage of trauma right now, whether it's activated a complex PTSD situation or just a PTSD pure situation. People are, one day they're fine and the next day they don't know why but they can't get motivation to like do anything today. So it really comes back to focusing on, what is one thing I want to accomplish today? What is one thing I want to move forward today, so that you can stay in the moment. And when you're delivering your price point, you don't know what moment they're in. So be as sensitive as you can so that they have a chance to come back and say yes, or be in dialogue with you. But if you're like, by gosh and by golly, that's what I was getting in in January of 2020. That's what I'm getting in April of 2020. You can try it, but you're not gonna have the same, even if they pay it, even if they, like they really needed you. They're going to pay it with a particular thought process about you that is not what you wanted.
That's right. Amen. And Geoffrey Miller just said it, Zig's quote, you can have everything in life you want if you just help enough other people get what they want. And I think, I told you, I have a lot of people that I'm helping learn this medium right here. And it's amazing to me how many, there's a lot of professional speakers that have no idea how to do what we're doing right now. I mean, anybody can hit the live button and go live and talk, but there's a different way, to engage the audience than you would from a stage. So, I think that, pardon me? Uh-oh, you're frozen.
Exactly. Oh, I did?
Oh, there. You're back. Wait, back.
I'm still here.
You're here.
I think that you're so right. The word engage is probably the biggest thing. So people have to understand, are you used to delivering the sage from the stage, where you get up, everyone has to be quiet, and you deliver? This is not a sage from the stage. Nope. This is how can I engage that we create an experience together? And that's what people are looking for right now. They're looking for someone to hold space.
Yep.
They're looking for someone to allow them to declare the experience they're in so they can move through that experience. That's what this kind of platform allows for, is that engagement.
It is true. And giving away your, I've given and given and given for many years, just given content for free. Like, here, I'm just going to do a live stream. I'm going to give, whether it's business, life, whatever it is, but some direction on whatever the topic would be. And as a result, people come back to me and go, hey, I've been watching you for years and now I want to do business with you. Right?
Exactly.
It's the way it works. It's the way that it works. And so do you feel like that's the direction that the NSA is going to have to go? I mean, pushing their speakers to start doing some more of a hybrid model?
Well, we have such a diverse membership that each one's model of how their portfolio looks is completely different.
Yeah.
So what we are doing right now during this time is every single Wednesday, we have a different resource of how to be preparing your business and using your business and pivoting your business. And it's everything from the technologies you should use. We started out with how, making sure your financials are in order. What can you do during this time? How do you deal with your mental mindset? So we're providing all of those resources to the members of NSA right now to help them through these different roller coaster stages of pivoting and expanding and reframing your business.
Wow. How in the world did you become? Is that an elected position? Like, did people have to cast ballots?
Yes, it is elected position.
Is it? Wow.
Well, and it's a little bit more. You are elected to the board of directors,
Okay.
and you have to have a skill set of helping organize organizations. So I've actually been on the board of over 50 organizations, and this is my 21st presidency. So whether it was universities or nonprofits or charities, over the course of my career, I've always led with being of service. That's just been a core DNA part of who I am. And it's one of those things that when it came to NSA, they asked me to run for the board. And I'm like, I'm good. I've done a lot of boards. No, I do not need it on my resume. And they're like, yes, but we need you. Oh, that's like kryptonite to me. We need you. So I ran for the board. And then after a few years, people nudged me to raise my hand to be in service as president. So
that is awesome.
First and final presidency.
My wife just nominated you to run for president of the United States.
Final presidency. Final presidency.
Looks like 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue may be your new address.
It is funny. I've had a few people over the years try to get me to run for politics, and I'm like, I will take that with the compliment that it is intended. No, thank you. No, thank you.
I mean, all you have to do is get your family to vote for you and you're going to win. I mean, that's going to be the popular vote.
I'm sorry. Sometimes the family vote is the toughest one to get.
Right.
Remember, I'm the little sister in my family's world.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Wow. So if, for anybody right now that's not a speaker, maybe they're just they're not pursuing the speaker world. They're pursuing a career in waiting tables, or maybe they wash dishes at a restaurant, or they're whatever, that are currently I can't even imagine being in a position where you literally have to relearn something completely new because that's just not there anymore, right? It's just not there for now, at least, right? So what do you say to those people to help them get through this time right now?
So the people that need to learn something new to create the opportunity for future work, or for speaking?
Just to get unstuck wherever they are.
I think the first thing I would say is get really curious. Like, think about the things that you most enjoy about your life. What do you enjoy reading? What do you enjoy listening to? What do you enjoy? And what do people ask you about a lot? Because if you're starting to explore what else could I do, or what else would I be good at, or what else would I love, start by getting really curious, and also getting somewhat quiet, journaling, starting in the morning and doing some, what I love to call automatic writing, not my term, but it's one of the terms I like, where you ask a question and then you set a timer for like 10 minutes and you just don't stop writing until the timer goes off. Because one of the things at this time is it is a perfect time to go a little bit deeper and use this as the impetus to something new. And so it starts with, what can I control? What is in my control right now? What I do with my time and my mind during this. And so putting in place a couple of practices that let you figure out what you're thinking about. Because if you stay in the just like headspace without doing something kinesthetic to help you get it out, then it gets overwhelming. And then you're at the mercy of everything coming at you. But if you're starting to think about what else, start that automatic writing. Even write, a question to yourself. And then again, relax and just answer for 10 minutes, because you don't know, it might be 3 minutes in, it might be 7 minutes in, it might be 8 minutes and 32 seconds in that you go, I forgot that passion. I didn't even know. I didn't even remember that I did that. So that's an access point.
That's so brilliant. Anna, I know you have to go. I want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your story, your wisdom, the laughter. Oh my God. Your story is unbelievable. So if you just joined, go back and listen to the beginning of this on the replay. This woman will blow you away. Her story it's incredible. Wow. So thank you.
Thank you. It's a delight to be with you all.
Yeah. And so thank you to everybody who's watched and shared this out. Don't hang up on me yet, but I'm going to end the broadcast. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you soon.